arrow closest to his heart sees the arrow fly the farthest, which simply means, in terms of child rearing, whoever gives the greatest nurturance to a child, that child will be equipped to go very far in the world. And it doesn't mean that there's a distance, a love disconnection by any means. Those people that go far oftentimes have the greatest bond that allows them to be fearless enough to do those things, which put them at a distant proximity.
And you're right. I'm glad that you said distance, because I always felt like I was so great because, as a mother, because my kids are close by. But they do.
Well, no, it can absolutely.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily geography that puts somebody at.
You're right.
That puts somebody in the world. I mean, you can do things close to home.
So instead, you turn it around and you say, "I'm proud," not thinking where they are, but how far they have come, and what they are doing.
I mean, I'm proud of them, and
so cool.
The technology is so good too. I mean, I go back and forth to New York from LA, like somebody would use a city bus sometimes, and I think about it. I think about what it would be like, say 120 years ago, or
That's what I think.
if you had to take a Conestoga wagon or take a boat, before the Panama Canal was built, you probably would never see these people again.
Yes.
So
that's true. It'd be years.
Yeah,
they go years without seeing each other.
I'm going to New York, whatever. Yeah, I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But this would be like, good tidings to you, my lad, and I love you, and may my gifts be with you. I shan't see you again. I mean, it would be terrible.
Tell me how long Sussman Lawrence was around as a band.
Not very long. I
didn't think so, but I wasn't
because,
sure.
certain things, they occupy a big space in your mind. It was probably around from 1979 to 1983.
Oh, funny.
84 maybe.
Wow.
It's not long, 4 or 5 years.
How has your writing and how's your composing and the way your music has changed, at least to me has changed? How has that been a strange thing for you for that to happen? Or is it just kind of part of
what
the
strange
flow?
thing are you talking about?
I don't know. Like, strange. Does it seem strange for you personally that you were writing very different? Okay, because I'll talk about like "Girl, I Want to Be Your Cigarette." That is so different to me than how your writing is now.
If you really wanted to get down to it, I like to take things and break them apart and really explore what's at the root of "Baby, Let Me Be Your Cigarette."
It took me a while.
It's kind of funny, obviously it's a glib song. It's tawdry and somewhat licentious. It's a prurient song. But at the heart of it, and it's just really distillation of a lot of the energy of youth, and certainly it has not been expended in me at my older age. It's simply the need, the visceral urge to reproduce. That is such a driving force to be attractive to a mate. I'm not, of course, no young person is ever cognizant of why he's attracted to this or that. And when you are super attracted, the last thing you are is sort of understanding the entire source of this energy. It's, biological, physiological need to reproduce. But that was at the bottom of it. I never played hockey, so it was very important for me to hone other skills. I mean, I'm not the most handsome person in the world, so I also needed to hone skills so that I would be assured of having a wonderful mate. That's just and no one ever thinks about that, nor did I. But that's how those songs came about. Those songs are about, notice me. I will amuse you, and I will tell you an amusing story about probably what you're feeling at 19 or 22 years old.
Yeah.
And I think, though, the same thing is existent in all my music, in everything that I do. There is a quality of notice me that's always there, and it's a need and it's an urge. But hopefully there's been an evolution that in the notice me, I actually might have something now to share that's of greater import, or it's a gift back to somebody. And that would be a goal of mine. So a lot of this, look at me, which propelled everything that I did. Obviously, it's still there. These are your skill sets and so on, like the peacock feathers that you use to, track yourself, to the world, endear yourself. I'm trying to dig into something deeper now. I'm trying to give something back so that the driving force of most of my work today is to allow other people to find the fruit of their own creativity so that they're becoming stronger and more fearless through what I have to offer.
Yeah.
And I've seen it now meted out so many times. I just got back from Orlando, and we're doing a thing, a big muse thing, which is really getting into that discussion.
Yeah.
Doing a thing for Adobe. It's not simply a business course. And also because in the last year, I never went to college either. Sussman Lawrence took that away from me.
Interesting.
But in the past year, I had done a big muse seminar, which I'll explain a little bit what goes on in those for the Kellogg School of Business at Northwestern University. Well, it was so successful that one of the deans called me it was about a year or so ago and said, Peter, we have this. He writes me, dude. I don't know if this would be of any interest, but we have this advanced management program. It's cost as much as a semester at any private college, and we want to give you a full scholarship to attend. What do you think? And I'm like, I asked my wife. She's like, absolutely. I asked my kids. I mean,
really,
my kids have all gone to some Ivy League schools, and each one is more educated and more erudite than the next, as is my wife. Everything that I have, by the way that I speak, the way that I comport myself, is really due to my wife's influence. Otherwise, I would just be a wild, feral man sleeping on urine-soaked straw and howling at the moon. So my mom said, absolutely, you should. This is amazing, because she could tell that finally I was going, and I did so well at this school that I'm coming back as an adjunct professor, several times a year. And what this did for me is business. But what I learned in the ivory tower of business, some of the, highest level professors in the business world are at Kellogg. It's a crucible of all sorts of interesting people from all over the world. They're really talking about human relationships, not mathematics, not physics. I mean, there's some statistical analysis that goes on. It's not my thing. But at the root of it, it's just interpersonal relationships. It's about being where you say you're going to be, simple leadership things that, having been in a band, for example, taught me so much about. One thing that's interesting about my time in Sussman Lawrence, there were the 5 of us. We practiced sometimes 10 hours a day for 6 days a week. We had gigs. We booked them all ourselves. We were not following some adult mandated curriculum. We were kids. But even though we were singing Baby Let Me Be Your Cigarette, we were very much adults. We very much had this burgeoning idea of what leadership meant, of what integrity meant. We didn't call it that at the time when we're walking around in our underwear. God knows what we were doing. But still, I see, coming from, quote, the street, or these sort of certainly non-academic environments, I had so much to offer the class, and the class had so much to share with me. So it was a very huge milestone in my life. Most of it was saying this big muse idea that you've basically dredged out of your tuchus from nowhere because you got fired from one of your big TV shows and you needed a job, is actually extremely meaningful. 2 weeks ago, I was at Wharton and the University of Pennsylvania working with grad students and PhD students. This is like mind-blowing to me in a certain way. It's so fulfilling and so gratifying. And it's all about taking ideas and giving them back to people so that they can say, wow, I'm super creative too. If I had to boil it all down, I would say, people say, yeah, you play the guitar and you're so creative. It's like, no, I'm not. Usually I'm just repeating the same crap I've already done. I'm not in a creative fecund mode. I happen to be in one this week. But no, repeating the same things and thinking about outcomes as opposed to being immersed in a creative experience, that's a whole other thing. So I say to an actuary or an IT guy or to an insurance person who, by dint of the job description assumes they're not creative, is that it's total bullshit. Creativity is being able to react to stimuli that are it's happening in the moment, being present. You could call it improvisational, but even jazz musicians whose life is, quote, improvisation, are very rarely truly improvising. They're simply using pre-amalgamated musical phrases, pre-studied, and putting them out into the world through the piano or saxophone in time, which is a brilliant technique, but it's not necessarily creative. Creativity is a conversation with your mother that's meaningful. It's getting on the floor with a baby and playing with a child. It's reading a letter from somebody in need and crying about it. That's creativity. That's being human. That's being alive. That's being fearless. And, I'm going on long-windedly.
No, that's good. And
you chop me up if you need to. But my kind of axiom, and I wrote this book, which will be out in October of 2016. It's called Let Me Out. We're messing with the tagline, subject line. Let me out, unlock your mind, and bring your ideas to life. And one of the axioms of the book is simply, if you are able to momentarily eliminate your fear, which is this character I've created in our heads, that sort of the internal critic that's afraid that we might get ourselves into trouble. I call him Marv. He looks like sort of like me, sort of fearful and I drew a picture of him. Marv is an acronym for majorly afraid of revealing vulnerability. And just a little bit on how it works. If we try a new thing, a difficult conversation, even a difficult letter, or we're going to go out on stage, or we're going to just do something it's a reinvention. It's not rote. It's a deeper level. We're going to address somebody on an honest level. The reason that we fear doing that is because there is a probability of failure. There's no question about it. Yeah. You can't do anything new without there being. So we fear not so much the failure, but the attendant shame that's a response to the failure. And then from the shame, we understand what happens to shameful people. Shameful people are shunned and they're abandoned. We recall on some sort of limbic brain level when we were pre-verbal, and there's research to support this, that we needed to stay connected to our parents, assuming they were our primary caregivers, not true in every case, because we understood in some primitive way that were we not connected, we would literally die. And that was an acute and accurate appraisal of the situation. So as adults, even if we're beautiful, even if we're rich, even if we're strong,